Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay. there we go. For some reason, the microphone was not selected. All right. Let's start this over. Ladies, gentlemen, and genetic anomalies, what is happening? Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. If not, hope that today's stream makes your day at least a little bit better. I'm coming to you live from the East Coast of the United States of America. And yeah, we have some things to talk about because Minecraft is not working for me. For those of you who have been following the Bro SMP or fans of the Bro SMP, this is not going to be news to you guys. This is something that's actually quite normal. It's something I'm quite familiar with, but things got to an even worse level when the realm expired. I needed to update some payment information that I provided to Microsoft for the Minecraft realms, and I renewed the subscription. But unfortunately, that's not enough. The realm is still inactive after, I believe, 2 weeks now of providing Microsoft with the correct payment information. And not only that, but even making new subscriptions to Minecraft realms. They still are locking not just me, but all of the siblings out of the Bro SMP. So for now, the Bro SMP is not available for us. It might as well be gone. It might as well be deleted because we can't play it at all. So that is something that I understandably am pretty frustrated about. I've reached out to Microsoft support because at this point I've literally done everything that I could possibly do except for signing completely out of Microsoft on the computer, which for those of you who are, you know, not as familiar with Minecraft, or sorry, not as familiar with Microsoft or Windows, that's actually a pretty big deal. It would actually probably mess up some stuff because I've got other games that I've installed through the Microsoft Store. I've got other applications that I've installed through the Microsoft Store. So I think that caused some issues. But literally everything other than that, I've tried even switching the subscriptions to a different card. You know, that didn't fix the problem. I've tried completely uninstalling and reinstalling Minecraft. I've tried using Minecraft with the launcher and without the launcher. None of that has worked. It all shows up as the realm being expired still, me having to renew it, and worse off, because I went and added a bunch of subscriptions 2 weeks ago in an attempt to renew the realm. Now it's saying that I have too many subscriptions that are active, and so I can't make another renewal. I can't make another I can't sign in again. So no more gaming streams, I guess, unless I download Power World, until Microsoft fixes this issue. And look, if Microsoft doesn't fix this issue, frankly, I don't know when I'll play Minecraft again, because, like, to me, the big thing about playing Minecraft has always been being able to play with friends. You guys know that before I was playing on the Car 3 SMP, and the main catalyst for me playing on the Car 3 SMP was literally so that I could play with my friends from college with a super stream team. And you know, when we kind of all moved out, we all got our own jobs and stuff, our schedules didn't really sync up as well, that SMP kind of faded away. And so I wasn't really playing Minecraft for at least a couple years. And then I was like, hey, why don't I make a new SMP with my siblings? Our schedules tend to work a lot better than my college friends' schedules. So I make this SMP. We've been playing for, I think, close to like 2 years now. And now the realm is gone. The SMP is gone. And I've done everything on my end that I could or should have to do in order to fix the problem. This is all on Microsoft's end now. They have to fix whatever it is. Now, I've emailed them. It's up to them to fix it. They want to fix it, they can. If they don't want to, then that's on them, and I'm just not playing Minecraft anymore. It's one thing to have glitches and outages. That's kind of normal for large companies. But if I'm going to be honest, this situation right here has very much soured my view of Minecraft in terms of kind of how they, not Minecraft, this has kind of soured my view of Microsoft and at least how they manage and operate Minecraft, because Minecraft is a great game. It's a timeless game. It is the type of game that, you know, people have played for 10 years, if not longer, and it's a game where people love coming back to it over and over again. So for a game like that to sort of screw up how you know, such a basic feature of the game works, which is realms, that a lot of people rely on to play, is just horrible. It's just bad. So I mean, literally, and I'm not joking, if Minecraft does not fix this issue, if Microsoft does not fix this issue, I'm not playing Minecraft anymore. In large part because realms is pretty much the only thing I use Minecraft for. But in general, it's like there are a bunch of other games that I could play. Like I could play Counter-Strike, I could play Power World. There are other games that I could play rather than sitting around 2 hours. I've already been sitting around 1 hour every single time I want to play on the realm. Now you're telling me I can't even play on the realm that I'm paying for? Nah. That's a bridge too far. Now, I do have some hope that going through the Microsoft support will fix the issue. So hopefully Microsoft does the right thing. But this is something that's had me very frustrated. And you know it's bad when I'm making a video or an entire segment about a Minecraft issue on, I guess, that IDB Highlights channel, because I typically talk about news, I typically talk about politics, I usually keep the gaming stuff separated, but this is just so bad. And also, so many of you guys watch my Minecraft content that I just thought that it was worth talking about in the intro. But yeah, there are other things that we're gonna cover and discuss as well. You know, I made this whole docket of news stories to talk about since, you know, Minecraft isn't letting me play Minecraft. I guess I'm gonna have to talk about Israel again. It's kind of crazy because I always found it super annoying how much people were talking about like the whole situation over in Israel. It's interesting that people are kind of making this out to be like like one of the most important stories. And don't get me wrong, like it is like a relatively big story, but a lot of people who weren't saying a word about Israel and Hamas all of a sudden, you know, have been like taking sides on this issue when, you know, 3-4 years ago they didn't have any thoughts about the situation at all. Now I will say, to be fair, the whole Israel and Hamas thing is something that a lot of people have had strong feelings about, but it's just not something that comes up in normal conversation. Most people just don't sit around talking about Israel and Hamas day in and day out, especially outside of the Palestinian and Judeo-Christian communities. So on one hand, I'm not shocked at all that all of a sudden people are talking about it, but people are talking about it for so long. I do just find it a little strange, especially considering that it's not something that either A, like directly affects most people talking about it, or B, it's not something that a lot of people can change. Also, the war's basically over. You know, like I like Hamas hasn't really done like a whole lot. I will say that I think, is Israel still striking Gaza? Here, I'll look this up real quick. Israel strike in Gaza. Israel strike in. Now that's crazy. Israel is still striking Gaza. So I will say this, you know, Israel was certainly within its rights to attack Hamas and start, not start because Hamas started, but engage in the Israel-Hamas war. But at a certain point, you know, it gets to be too much. Like, actually, there's some news I could talk about right now. Hold on, let me pull this up. So this is about as close as you'll ever get to Hamas surrendering. Let me see. This is actually recent news as well. Yeah, here we go. And actually, I should cut off this music. I'm sure that a lot of you guys are going to find this pretty annoying. But yeah, so this happened pretty recently. It says, this is a headline here: Hamas dissolves Gaza governing body ahead of power transfer. So Gaza is undergoing a transfer of power, and Hamas has dissolved. I repeat, Hamas has dissolved. That is pretty much as close as you could get to surrender or an official formal victory as you possibly could. But Israel is still firing rockets into Gaza. So, I think now it's certainly fair to say that Israel has gone too far in the war against Hamas. Hamas does not effectually exist. There might still be some Hamas terrorists inside of Gaza. But when the state that declared war on you has dissolved and most of their military might and power has essentially gone away, I don't think that you can justify continuing to go after the Palestinians there and bombing Gaza. At this stage, what you would typically expect is the victor, who will be Israel, to come in, conquer the land, restore peace, build up the infrastructure, and then it's time to move forward. Now, is Israel going to do all that? Frankly, I don't know. I have not seen any indications that Israel has any serious plans to actually go into Gaza, properly capture it, and build the infrastructure up and kind of make it part of Israel. That's the thing you would historically expect from a war, but that's not exactly what we're seeing here. I'm not seeing any rhetoric about bombing stopping. I'm not seeing any rhetoric about kind of even what the new next steps are going to be. And so while it is certainly fair to criticize Israel for what they're doing here, I do think that people go way overboard, kind of being like, oh, the poor Palestinians, they had no other option, or kind of oh, well, you can't blame them because bad people didn't like them, or bad people were doing military stuff against them. I think you have to give Palestinians agency and be like, hey, man, I completely understand that things that you didn't like have been happening to you for a while, or you don't like the situation that Gaza's in, but that doesn't give you the excuse to just murder a bunch of people who were at a music festival. That sort of thing is just out of bounds. But yeah, it is interesting kind of how this has become a national story. This one war, which is relatively bloodless and can in comparison to a lot of the other conflicts going on. Muslims have been running around killing Christians for years in Africa, and nobody is saying anything about that really, except for maybe CBN News and Fox News once every 3 months. So a lot of people kind of have their eyes off the ball a little bit. There's some more important things going on now. Israel, and this is something that we may talk about another time, or I might have made a video about this already actually, but America's involvement with Israel and support of Israel is another thing. I think that of course some support for our ally is fine, but you also have to have strings attached with all those. Israel has, to the point of literally joking about it in mainstream media interviews, has sort of been oh yeah, America, we'll do whatever you want, we'll stop doing these troublesome things, and they just take the money still and do whatever they want. I think that the Trump administration really does need to hold Israel's feet to the fire when it comes. Oh, oops. They need to hold. We need to hold Israel's feet to the fire when it comes to doing things that are unethical. And frankly, the United States of America is the only nation that has the power to do so. We are Israel's sugar daddy. We give them everything that they need in order to run stuff like the Iron Dome, which, by the way, I think that support for the Iron Dome should just be unconditional, because that's purely defensive military. That's a purely defensive part of military technology. That sort of stuff I'm completely fine with, but missiles and more offensive weaponry, those sorts of things should be held with very tight strings attached. So I'm not the biggest fan of Israel. Whenever there's a terrorist attack, I'm always boo, bad. that doesn't give Israel a blank check to do whatever they want, but that also does. But the inverse isn't true. Like, it's not like Israel isn't allowed to do anything to respond. I know a lot of people are mad, are like, oh, back in the 1940s, Palestinians have the land. They should have the land back. Like, no. Like, they fought wars over the land. They lost the land. That's like how it goes. Again, I've said this before, and I'll say this again. When you engage in war and then you lose the war, you can't complain about what you lost, right? So that kind of rhetoric has gotten old to me. I find that very, very annoying. But at this point, it's like, bruh, like we need to put more pressure on Israel, because I mean, to say that it's getting ridiculous is a little bit generous when Hamas is basically dead as an organization and you're still bombing Gaza. Like, what are we doing? Come on. But while we are on the subject, wait, I should actually pull up my my live chat here. You know what? I think I actually forgot. Did I? Okay, it's still okay. It's on news and politics. Okay, for a second. Yeah, for a second I was like, "What?" I wasn't sure if I properly updated my streaming settings, but I did. All right. So while we're actually on the subject, we do have this interesting story here. This is from Newsweek. U.S. and Israel military integration, what NDAA vote does and does not do. So Democrats especially, but a lot of people are lying about what this vote is. Now, I will say that this NDAA, I think it's called Section 19, bill is still bad. I do not support this. I think that it's a little bit worrisome for reasons that I'm sure will be made evident as we read this Newsweek article. I haven't pre-read this, but I know a little bit about the situation already. But Democrats are lying to you, like anti-Trump people, they're lying to you about this. Anti-Semites and also people who hate Israel, they're lying to you about this as well. They're saying, oh, and also I guess like people who are just farming like for engagement as well, they're also lying about this. They're like, oh, America is merging our military with Israel. Like, no, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening at all. Now, what is happening will be evident once we read this article. This is written here by Ellie Cook, the senior defense reporter for Newsweek. It says U.S. lawmakers have passed a version of the huge defense spending policy bill that will determine next year's funding and priorities for the Pentagon, despite concerns from several Democrats that it will deepen certain links with Israel. The U.S. House of Representatives passed the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, for the 2027 fiscal year by 216 votes to 212 on Wednesday. Ooh, that is narrow. It authorizes more than $1 trillion in military spending, further pulling the U.S. ahead as the world's biggest defense spender, and comes shortly after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the U.S.'s war against Iran had cost $37 billion since February 28. It also dragged the U.S.'s relationship with Israel into the spotlight, with typical broad support for U.S. ties with Israel jeopardized by growing discomfort with the humanitarian toll on Israel's war in Gaza. Israel has strongly denied accusations that it is committing genocide against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip since it launched its invasion of the tiny territory, following Palestinian militant group Hamas's October 7 attacks on Israel in 2023. Multiple Democrats, including Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, urged other members of the party to block the NDAA until lawmakers could examine the terms of U.S.-Israeli cooperation. New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said there was a danger the NDAA would merge parts of our military with the IDF, impose an existential threat to American sovereignty and democracy. Democrat Representative Ro Khanna and Republican Representative Thomas Massie said they would fight against military integration with Israel. Massie had proposed stopping more than $3 billion in U.S. aid to Israel, largely destined for the Israeli military, earlier this month, but the amendment was defeated in a House vote. American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, which lobbies both Democrats and Republicans to tighten up cooperation with Israel, said the provision was critical to helping both countries stay ahead of new threats, including in developing new air defenses and counter-drone systems. The provision would leverage our partnership with Israel to help give American troops a strategic edge on the battlefield, modernize our military, and ensure the United States has access to cutting-edge technology, AIPAC said in June. Israel reported record weapons sales for 2025, which have more than doubled in the past 5 years, even as countries highly critical of the war in Gaza rush to beef up their militaries with equipment tested in battle conditions. Okay, now here's the important part. This is the part that's extremely crucial in this article. It says what the NDAA would do. The part referring to collaboration with Israel is called Section 219. In this provision, the U.S. would create a coordinator in the Pentagon to expand and accelerate research, testing, and development of new technology with Israel. They would also oversee how new systems would slot into the U.S. military and which companies would produce them. This person would work out which technologies Israel has developed or the U.S. has helped Israel to build, which could be useful to the U.S. military. Let's see here. Now, I will say this. There's been a lot of stuff in this article about like how this has been written, people praising it, being like, oh, this could be helpful. This could be useful. This could make things more efficient. Like, yes, that's technically true. But you also have to worry about security concerns. Israel has long been cited as the biggest security threat when it comes to stealing sensitive and classified material. I think the Pentagon has, had their eyes on them for a while. I know that he seems to sensationalize things, but there's this guy named like Chris Krakow or something from the CIA. Let me see. CIA agent. If I search his name up incorrectly, he'll probably show up. It was a Kiria Cow. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, he's talked about this before. This is a guy who's gone viral. He used to work in the CIA and he's been running around telling lots of stories. Now, what he says, to be fair, might not entirely be true, but some version of this I believe is true. I've heard that the Pentagon is really worried about how Israel has tried to bug and steal information from America in the past.
Who did you not at all trust, even though you had to work with them?
Israelis. We're like, you guys can't keep coming back here every single time trying to bug our conference room. It was cultural. My very first encounter with the Israeli intelligence, I was a brand new analyst. We don't allow the Israeli into CIA headquarters. They would always come with gifts, and the gifts had always listening devices packed inside them. And, somebody brings you a gift, you x-ray it. It's the normal process. And we're like, you guys can't keep coming back here trying to bug our conference room.
What percentage of the time did gifts have bugs in them?
100%.
Be quiet.
No, seriously.
Are you kidding me?
We had a safe house in Virginia, and we would meet with them there. Because I was overt at the time, I used my true name, so I said, my name is John Kiriakou, and I'm going to brief you today on Saddam Hussein's state of mind. The Mossad guy, glasses were like this, and he says, you are Jewish? And I said, I am not recruitable. Don't even think about it. I was so furious that he was ready to cold pitch me right there in front of all my colleagues. Let's have lunch afterward. Get out of here, moron. Try to recruit me in front of everybody.
Who did you
that's crazy. But yeah, so that sort of stuff is why a lot of people in the intel community are a little bit worried. I think a lot of more I guess would be fair to say ideologically balanced people who are not necessarily anti-Israel even or supportive of Israel's enemies abroad, but just are like very much pro-America, are like, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't like this. This scares me. This worries me. Those are all fine concerns to have. So opposition to this bill is by no means fringe at all. And I don't think this is even among partisan lines. I'm sure people like Thomas Massey are opposed to this as well. Section 219 also lists several areas in which the U.S. would work more closely with Israel. These are drone threats of all types, including aerial drones and seaborne unmanned systems, anti-tunneling and underground threats, air defense, artificial intelligence and quantum computing, advanced sensors and directed energy, electronic warfare and cybersecurity, medical programs and biotechnology, fusing data and networks together, defense industry and other emerging technologies. A line in Section 219 also commits to the U.S. to joint training exercises with the Israeli military and sharing information that means both militaries can use technology they develop together. I mean, we've long shared equipment. We basically give them blank checks for whatever technology and weapons that they ask for, more or less. So, like, this is not particularly needed. I don't like this at all. HEXF would be required to report back to Congress within 180 days of the progress of work between the two countries. The Defense Secretary would then submit a yearly report to lawmakers until 2030. The rundown will cover how the closer links have benefited U.S. national security. The only thing is this is moot. One thing I've heard about this bill is that it'll be hard to unravel once it's in place, which I'm not 100% sure is the case, particularly in earlier stages. But still, if you're doing this and they're just taking your classified information and not helping you, let's say you want to do it, but some damage has already been done because you've lost sensitive and important information. That's still not great. Unclassified versions of these reports would be made public, although some parts wouldn't be published if they contain classified information. What the NDAA would not do. The text of Section 219 doesn't create a new joint military force or make any reference to putting U.S. troops under Israeli commanders. The same is true for Israeli soldiers. There's no mention of placing them under U.S. command. There's no wording in the NDAA which would force the U.S. to fight a war on Israel's behalf or vice versa. Let's see. The bill will now head to the Senate before eventually landing on President Donald Trump's desk for sign-off. One thing I'm curious about is, hold on. Here, let me see. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to look this up just to see. Now, I don't have time to read through this entire article, unfortunately, but there is this article here about what the next step is, right? Because, we read the article, it said, hey, the next thing that needs to happen is this needs to go to the Senate. So I was like, hey, is this likely to pass the Senate? I do not know. It would be a very tight vote, again, I'm sure. BreakingDefense.com, which I don't know how accurate they are, but they are saying that the measure has stalled in the Senate. Now, of course, they haven't had a lot of time to, even vote on this. Typically things don't just go like boom, 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 super quickly. In 2 or 3 days, everything is signed by the House, signed by the Senate, and then signed by Donald Trump himself. So I don't know if this is just, Congress moving at a typical standard pace. But some people very clearly have some misgivings about this. And, like even Mike Rogers is admitting, and he's a Republican, right? Being like, yeah, we completely understand that this is something that some people are worried about and have issues with. So, this is certainly not, this is not something that is a foregone conclusion. There's still an opportunity, or at least a couple of opportunities actually, for this to not get passed. And I don't think that the vote that was passed by the House was veto proof either. I think that you would need a supermajority for that to take place. So Donald Trump could stop this bill. I hope that he does. He does have some Warhawks kind of in his ear at the moment, unfortunately. But I do hope that Donald Trump does the right thing and stops this, because it'd be important. I would argue imperative not to sign this into law for the sake of national security, if no other reason. Sharing technology, I'm completely fine with when we've got an ally that we work with so closely as Israel. Again, when it comes to actually like deploying, like giving them certain things, I think that there need to be strong strings attached and heavy restrictions, because Israel does a lot of things that we don't agree with. They do a lot of things that we would never do, but we continue to give them weapons. I think that there are a multitude of different reasons why we do this. We don't have to get into all of those right now, but I just think that it's, you know, it's unfortunate. And even though they're our allies, you know, we give them too much already. We don't need to give them anything else. We don't need to give them more. They don't need it. We don't need it. It's supposed to be helpful, but I mean, we're talking about a nation that is notorious for trying to steal our classified information, just giving them a pipeline for more information. That's not great. You know, it's like giving a bank robber a credit card. Just like, like, why would we do that? Come on. All right, we've got this article here from Reason TV. Apparently things are getting even worse in New York. I actually did hear about things going very poorly in New York recently, in New York City. I actually made a rather pithy post about it on X. I like to make jokes on X a little bit. I don't go too serious on X. Like I tend not to get much engagement on my posts either, but I just like post little things that that make me laugh or whatever. And I did see this post here. This was from who was this? This was like a former Destiny orbiter as well. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is from like a former Destiny orbiter. Now, I've heard that this person has some allegations against her. I don't know how true those are. I haven't dug into them. But this person went and made this post on X with a video. It says, ducks at the reflecting pool swimming in the trash. Donald Trump hates ducks. And we see this video of ducks swimming in the trash that's in reflecting pool. Donald Trump hates ducks. And so I responded. I said, rent has reached record highs in Manhattan and Brooklyn. Zoran Mamdani hates renters. Because what Stardust here is doing is actually a classic trick that a lot of not classic trick, but what Stardust here is doing is a classic mistake that a lot of people make, where they assume that the result is the goal. This is what a lot of people do. Interestingly enough, they always do this to their political enemies. They never do this with their political allies. But you see a lot of people do this. Like I think that a really clear and easy example to make is conservatives looking at, or I guess maybe capitalist is the right word, capitalists looking at socialists and communists, dismissively saying, oh, you guys want them to starve because their policies lead to starvation, which is true. But that doesn't mean that their goal is, you know, starvation, or, you know, communists and socialists really hate obesity so much that they support all these policies that lead to starvation and food insecurity. No, that's not it. People have different goals and motivations, and they may choose poor plans that do the exact opposite of what they're trying to do. That doesn't really say anything about their attitudes as far as like what their goals are. Now, and that's what he said. That's what she's doing here. It says, ducks at the reflecting pool swimming in the trash. Donald Trump hates ducks. How do you know that Donald Trump hates ducks? Because some ducks are swimming in trash. That's not true. That's not true. Yes, ducks are swimming in the trash, but Donald Trump, ducks swimming in trash is not proof that Trump hates ducks. It's not. Just like rent hitting record highs is not proof that Zoran Mamdani hates renters. And by the way, this is a real article. You can look this up. This is from PIX11. It says rent prices hit record highs in Manhattan and Brooklyn report. And we don't have to get into all that right now because we're actually about to react to this video here. But first of all, I just want an excuse to mention my X account. Second of all, yeah, this is a trend. Rent is going even higher in New York, and Reason is going to give you their take on why that is. Oh, hold on. I should probably unmute the tab, shouldn't I?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Ow! Them all! Madami and his communist party!
What?
There are about 50
Is this a zombie convention? What? Did they lose the plot? What is going on here? What? This is weird.
57,000 so-called zombie apartments in New York City with nobody living in them. These apartments, which are rent regulated, would cost landlords more to repair and maintain than they're allowed to collect and rent. So a group of small property owners recently hired actors to dramatize.
This is still cringe though. This is like the most millennial thing I've seen in 2 weeks. This is so cringe.
The impact of price controls on their buildings.
Zombies represent all the zombie apartments and buildings that we have, and that's coming and that's here already.
Bills are increasing, insurance is increasing, all the utilities are increasing, and we need more funds to take care of the building and provide proper housing for our tenants.
Taxes are through the roof, insurance is through.
Also, it's not about like, oh, I want to provide this or that to my tenants so that the place is super nice. That's not it. It's literally there are things that need to be fixed or maintained in order to comply with government regulations that they are obligated to do that they can't afford to do. It's not like, oh, we want to be super fancy and upscale. Like, no. We need these to be luxury apartments. No. It's literally that it was essentially illegal for them to operate the apartment at a profit, and no business owner is ever going to do that. They're going to hold on to their asset until especially an asset like land, like they're like property values may fall and they're still not going to sell their asset. They're just going to hold their asset until economic conditions improve.
The roof, and they'll put me in a situation I might lose my buildings.
The math doesn't math, and for some reason we're the ones always left holding the bag.
The zombie horde showed up outside a public hearing of the Rent Guidelines Board, which each year sets the limit of what landlords can charge for the city's nearly 1 million rent-stabilized apartments. They voted to cap rent increases at 0 this year, fulfilling a campaign promise of New York socialist mayor Zoran Mamdani.
These past months have shown us anything. It is that socialists not only understand economics just as well as the capitalists who came before, but that we can solve their years of mismanagement through an embrace of our principles.
His promises cannot be kept. There's no way of keeping them. You can't. Because mathematically, everyone's losing money.
I think he can keep his promises of enacting the policies that he wants, but I mean, of course, you can't keep the promise of the results.
For building owners, trying to get the board to hear their message was like talking to the undead.
I'm not bashing the tenants. I'm not an anti-tenant. I'm just saying it's not a fair game here. And the city should do more to alleviate the problems on both parties. So I think the city is the culprit here.
But you're promising these people like, oh, we're going to freeze the rent, but how am I going to pay my oil bill? How am I going to pay my property taxes?
My parents own a building for the last 38 years, and they have been abused by the system left and right. In 2026, we have a rent-controlled tenant that's been paying $80 a month rent for the last 38 years. My father owns the building. We can't afford to fix anything.
We have
one problem too is that these people, I said earlier in the video, that these people are going to choose to hold on to their asset until economic conditions improve. There's a factor of this I didn't consider when I made that statement, so I do want to add an amendment to it. It's not only that people are choosing to hold on to these assets, which they are in large part doing, but even if they wanted to get rid of the asset, no one would buy it from them because of this area. Like, it's one thing if you've inherited land like this, or you've had one of these apartments in your possession for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you're like, well, I've had it for so long, I don't really want to give it up. It's completely different if you're like, hey, let me sell this, so that I can get it off my hands. No one is going to willingly jump into these waters, right? And then, like, how are you even gonna get anyone to pay something that's not like dirt cheap or bargain bin prices for this land, because of all the stuff they have to deal with? Like, it's like trying to sell a lemon house. Like, it's not gonna work.
arrears for tenants that continue to not pay, housing court cases that refuse to move at any kind of normal pace. We have utilities that are skyrocketing.
If tenants stop paying rent, it takes an average of 15 months to evict them in New York's housing courts. one point, the zombie horde walked right through a group of activists who had come out in support of Mamdani's rent freeze.
What do you say to the argument the zombies over there are making that, our costs are going up and up and up, and then a rent freeze, it would just mean we don't have the money to run the building?
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but the Rent Guidelines Board, every year they issue studies to determine what they should do in terms of raising the rent. And the last few years, those studies have determined that landlords are making good profit.
That's a isn't that an appeal to authority fallacy? To be like, well, this one board here is saying that they're making profits. It could be true or not true, but that is still a fallacy.
Not all landlords. This year, the Rent Guidelines Board found that, according to the latest data, over 1,600 buildings, which contain roughly 9% of all rent-stabilized apartments, are in the red.
You're gonna get fucked.
Well, okay, now we have to be fair. 10%. Now, 10% of apartments being in the red is bad. I wonder what the year-over-year increase is, but that also means that 90% of apartments are in the black.
This reporting also doesn't account for what landlords pay in debt service. Many more rent-stabilized buildings are losing money when those costs are factored in. Landlords with distressed properties can apply to the New York State Department of Housing and Community Renewal's Office of Rent Administration for relief. Elon Rabinovich, who owns a small building on the Upper West Side, says the program is a dead end.
I've been applying for that program for 4 or 5 years now. I sent in probably 10,000 pages of documentation, and I got a few bucks for it. It was like $90. And I have to phase that in over 5-6 years.
Will New York's housing nightmare ever come to an end?
How long have you been a property owner?
Way too long.
If you like this video and want more content,
yeah, I mean, so like, the demonstration is kind of cringe, but this is a real issue that's facing New Yorkers. And the sad thing too is that like a lot of socialists and communists are not going to look at what's happening in New York City right now and blame communism or socialism, because the one thing that's interesting is like, no matter what happens, it's never the communist or socialist fault that communism or socialism doesn't succeed. It's always, well, they didn't try hard enough. They never seem to come to terms with the fact like maybe these policies just aren't good. Maybe they suck. Maybe they don't work. And that's pretty unfortunate, because that also means that the movement is never going to end. Because until these people kind of accept that, you can't just freeze rent and then and have that magically create a whole lot of affordable housing. You actually have to fix economic issues that are spiking up inflation. You have to change zoning codes and stuff that make it easier for people to build more housing, which, to be fair, I watched the debate. Zoran Mamdani did say that he wanted to do something about that, to his credit. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people just aren't going to look deeper to this. They'll probably just blame some other capitalist in the state and be like, oh, it's that person's fault. Pretty unfortunate. And it's a sad fact that New York City is going to be like the testing ground for these policies that we already know don't work. All right, we've got this clip here from Forbes Breaking News. This is Marco Rubio, as he was asked about the NDAA. I believe this is section 19, which does not, by the way, fuse the U.S. and Israeli military. What it does is it basically gives Israel a clearer pipeline to American intelligence and R&D information, basically. Oh, and I gotta unmute this tab too.
Anybody, they're debating the new military policy bill right now after the House passed it. One of the more controversial topics is about fusing the U.S. and Israeli military when it comes comes to co-production on things. Do you have any sovereignty concerns about that? If there are situations where the United States wants to send weapons, Iron Dome came up with Ukraine when the Israelis...
You're asking about NDAA? Yeah, I mean, that largely the Department of War manages that legislative portfolio, so I'm aware of the provision you're discussing that involves cooperation on technology. And look, at the end of the day, the truth is we do that with countries all over the world, right? I mean, if somebody, well, I haven't read the specific provision in terms to tell you in detail. I understand that. I understand the topic, though, because it's not new. You know, on air defense, for example, we've long cooperated with the Israelis. Look, if we have a breakthrough in our system or they have a breakthrough in theirs, we could share that in a way to improve our own systems as well. So if they've come up with some novel way of defeating drones, for example, of course we would want to have that and benefit from it. By the way, they're not the only country in the world that we would do that with. We do that with other countries as well. So I think that's the provision you're referring to, and that's something we're already doing. I mean, that's something that already exists. But I don't think there's any that's different from.
And that's actually my problem with it. It's that, you know, it's basically making just like a little bit easier to do things that we already do. We already share intelligence with Israel. The things that they need to know, we give to them. You know, we don't need to give them anything more than we're already giving them. If anything, we need to give them a little bit less, frankly. And we need to have a lot more conditions on the things that we should give them. You know, basically everything that's not the Iron Dome, I think, should come with a lot of strings attached, to the point where it's starting to look like a ball of yarn, rather than in any other shape.
Sovereignty. I mean, it's not like U.S. forces are going to come under the command and control of a foreign general or anything of that nature.
When Ukraine was asking for Iron Dome, the United States and some lawmakers, including Lindsey Graham, wanted the U.S. to send Iron Dome battery that was in the East Coast. Netanyahu vetoed that. That was the co-production.
But anytime you enter into co-production, we have those restrictions too. I mean, if we provide weaponry to a country as part of an agreement, they can't transfer that to a third country without our approval. We do the same thing, and Israel's not the only country in the world that does it. Other countries do it with their systems as well. That's just
and I don't know why he brought that up. That's not relevant at all.
Normal way when you do arms sales, part of the restrictions is you get to veto them passing it on to a third country. That's not just us to do it or Israel. It's every country.
Now, I don't know if Marco Rubio was asked about this, but to me, what I think is probably the most dangerous is the intelligence aspect, because Israel's long been trying to steal intelligence from the United States over and over again. The Pentagon has been concerned about this. CIA has been concerned about this. In general, people who value national security are very worried about that section of the bill, in large part because of that. And so regardless of, like, you know, oh, it's a little bit more helpful, maybe it's not necessary. To me, the biggest problem is national security. That's the biggest problem to me. More than, you know, I'm not anti-Semitic. You know, I don't hate Israel. I don't love a lot of things that they do, but I don't, you know, have this loathing for them that a lot of other people have. But still, that doesn't mean that you just agree or go along with everything that Israel does. You know, sometimes Israel does things that are bad. I think that it's a little bit more obvious now than it has been in years past. So, you know, this is something that hopefully is stopped. Now, there is time to halt this. The ball's in the Senate's court right now, and it does seem like it's not a foregone conclusion that it will pass the Senate. And even if it passes the Senate, I do hope that Donald Trump vetoes it, because at least the signing of the bill in the House was not veto proof. So, you know, hopefully Donald Trump does the right thing and vetoes this if this crosses his desk. I almost feel like it is gonna get passed by the Congress, to be honest. But yeah, we'll see what happens with all that. You know, hoping that Donald Trump does the right thing seems a little bit more like a coin toss than it has been in the past years. But one can hope. All right, we've got this video. Well, actually, no, this isn't a video. All right, so we've got this story here. This is from PBS News. I had wanted to react to this story before, but I just didn't really have a whole lot of time. So I figured, hey, you know, why not go into this now? This is about the shooting death of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo at the hands of ICE. This actually was such a big deal that even before there was time for uproar to start, ICE literally halted pulling over cars. Like they were like, we're not going to pull over vehicles anymore until we, dig into this further, which I think is actually a really good signal. It shows that ICE is finally responding to failures of their tactics and reassessing things, which is great news. That's something that I've wanted ICE to do for a long time. I'm a little bit tepid in regards to how I feel about ICE. I think in general, ICE does do some good work. I like the ethos of ICE as it was founded, which is an enforcement agency in order to enforce immigration law. I think that's completely fine to do. I think it's actually imperative that the government enforces immigration law. The problem is how that is done sometimes. NBC News some time ago put out an article where they dug into the process for hiring ICE officers and stuff. The vetting process was extremely poor. Some people with limited training sometimes were given weapons that they shouldn't have been provided. Overall, it just doesn't seem like a well-organized organization at the moment. Some people are given insufficient training, and they end up in these situations killing people where even if, like, let's say there's a situation where I think that I think was justified, like Renee Nicole Good was a situation where, yeah, sure, shooting was justified. She was, running over an officer, actually rolled over his foot and stuff. When he first started firing at her, he was in front of the vehicle. He could have gotten run over, and as he continued to fire, it's still fair for him to kind of feel fear for his life, especially when we're talking milliseconds here. We're not talking about 1 minute. In 1 full minute, he's in threat of his life, and then another full minute, he's just not. And then at the end of that second minute, he's shooting people. Like, that's not what would happen here. It was very split, bang, bang play, so to speak. Even still, the way that they approached her in that scenario is not the way I've ever seen standard law enforcement officers approach a vehicle. They approached her in a way that endangered themselves. And, because sure, she decided to hit the gas, yes, but did you need to be in front of the vehicle that close? No, be in front of the vehicle, sure. But, take some distance, I mean, that dude could have gone splat in 2 seconds if she floored the gas, which she certainly could have done. He could be dead if she went as fast as she possibly could. So, yeah, ICE does not handle situations correctly in many cases. I do like that they are finding illegal immigrants. They are deporting them. That's good. But still, the way that they practice enforcement of the law deserves to be looked at and scrutinized to a certain degree. And this is one thing that led ICE apparently to realize this. Now let's go through the details about this. This was written by Politics. Wait, hold on. This is another article ripped from the AP. Bruh, I think this is another thing ripped from the AP. This is one thing I don't like. Okay. For clarity for you guys who might be a little bit confused, when I read articles, I prefer to go to the source of the matter. I don't like it. I don't like it when some news site just rips AP articles and then reposts them. Yes, I do understand that. Let me see. I do understand that you gotta fill in the gaps with reporting. You can't do all of your reporting yourself, but don't just rip Associated Press articles. Make your own article. I mean, there are plenty of cases also where people literally write articles about other people's articles. Just do that. But hold on, let me see if I can find this. When was this written? This was released on July 10th. Okay, I think I found this because thankfully they listed the author of this, who was Lakan Okeyanmi. So this is not from the AP. This is not from PBS News. This is by the AP. It says what to know about the fatal shooting of a Houston man by an ICE officer. By the way, by the way, quick note: if you guys are ever curious about whether or not an article was ripped from the Associated Press, you can always tell because. Hold on, let me pull this up here. You can always tell because in AP, they always start their articles like this, where it says like where it is, Houston, AP, and then like an M dash, and then the article starts. And they will literally just rip that and put that in here. So you can see that it says AP, and usually at the bottom, they will also include details about, oh, this is from the Associated Press, this is who helped write the article. I think that's included in here as well. Yeah, so, you know, those are just some clues that, you know, that PBS News article was not written by PBS News. But anyways, let's continue. I'm quibbling here. I'm quibbling. A U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement officer fatally shot Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, a Mexican national who lived in the U.S. for decades, as the home builder drove his construction crew to a Houston job site. His death set off protests in Texas's largest city and calls from Democrats and Salgado Araujo's family for an independent investigation. The shooting on Tuesday in a heavily Hispanic neighborhood is at least the 8th death during the Trump administration's immigration enforcement campaign. The Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, said federal officers were looking for someone else when they attempted to stop Salgado Araujo's vehicle. DHS said Salgado Araujo rammed an ICE vehicle and that an officer opened fire in self-defense. Salgado Araujo's family said he was very close to obtaining legal status in the U.S. after living in the country for 35 years, and that he knew what to do if apprehended by ICE officers. So, wait, hold on. It says Salgado Araujo's family said he was very close to obtaining legal status in the United States after living in the country for 35 years. Wait a second. Because I remember when the story broke, literally an activist group said that he was in the country legally. Wait, hold on. Wait a second. Wait. I distinctly remember this happening. So what was the name of the activist group that spoke out in support? Man, I know that there was an activist group who spoke out in support of him. Let me see if I can find this. I'm looking for more details on this. Hold on, is this the activist group? No, I wish I. Yeah, no, I wish I could find the activist group, but I distinctly remember an activist group immediately saying, hey, you know, he was in the country legally. It's interesting now that the news has come out and, you know, sort of gone against that narrative. Here's what we know about Salgado Araujo's shooting. The shooting happened on a Houston street. Few photos or videos surrounding the shooting have emerged on social media, unlike other deaths involving federal immigration officers. DHS has not released any images or footage. DHS said in a statement that federal officers were heading to the address of a target Tuesday when they saw a white van and someone inside who resembled the person they were looking for. An officer opened fire after Salgado Araujo ignored commands and attempted to ram the officer with his vehicle, DHS said. A video shot by bystander Juliet Martinez shows the aftermath of the shooting. A black vehicle is angled toward a white van, their doors wide open. A bleeding and handcuffed man groans loudly on the ground and his leg shakes. Other federal officers stand over at least 3 other handcuffed men. ICE has not released the names of the other men detained, but Salgado Araujo's family identified one as his brother. Families of the other 2 men said they were able to briefly talk to them Wednesday, and they have been detained. DHS said Thursday that the officers involved in the shooting were not wearing body cameras. The department blamed Democrats for the record government shutdown that was fueled by President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. Now, I believe that months ago, approval had been passed already, and funding actually had been granted for body cams. This was months ago. So, hold on, actually, let me see if I can pull this up, because I don't like just saying stuff. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So this is from US News. It says DHS was granted, hold on, why is this all big like this? Okay. DHS was granted $20 million for body cameras. ICE agents and fatal Houston shooting had none. This is another thing right from the Associated Press, but whatever. Let's see. In the days after 2 American citizens were shot and killed in Minneapolis earlier this year, formerly Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the department would rapidly acquire and deploy body cameras to its officers around the city. Nearly half a year later, after another shooting death under disputed circumstances blamed on the department, the promise still hasn't been fully met. Now, I mean, if we go all the way back to February, they do have a policy for what ICE needs to do when wearing body cameras. So, you know, they have all the policies in place needed for body cams. All they need is just the cameras. Now, things are changing, and this is something that we'll talk about later, but there is a new policy here. This is from CBS News. Says every ICE arrest team will now have an agent with a body camera, DHS says, after 2 fatal shootings draw scrutiny. Finally, we were seeing some reforms in ICE. This is great news. But you know, you've already killed like 3 people. It's too little too late, in my opinion. U.S. representative, but anyways, all that to say, I got a little derailed there. But all that to say, the excuse of, oh, there's a government shutdown doesn't work, right? It's been several months since the funding was granted for the body cams. So where are they? U.S. Representative Christian Menifee, a Democrat who also represents Houston, said if ICE officers did not have the devices, it was because Trump and Republican lawmakers did not want them to. DHS said it would not release the name of the officer who shot Salgado Araujo. The department did not say how long the officer has worked for ICE or whether any of the officers involved were placed on leave. Salgado Araujo's family said he worked hard for the American dream. I don't really, that doesn't really seem to be relevant to the incident. You know, none of this really is relevant to the shooting, except at the end it says DHS is investigating the shooting. Homeland Security said Tuesday that the department's Inspector General's office was investigating the shooting. Harris County District Attorney Sean Tier said Salgado Araujo's family and the community deserve the truth. His office said Thursday that they are pursuing investigative avenues available to us and will conduct a review of any information we collect within our reach. Houston Mayor John Whitmire said city police were not involved in any part of the chase or shooting and have no jurisdiction over federal officers. Another tragic story, you hate to see people die. Now, if it does turn out to be true that he was ramming the officers, then he did bring that upon himself. But you still always want to see these situations end without somebody dying. Like, I would much rather see an illegal immigrant get deported than to be killed. Illegal immigration is not a crime worth killing over. Now, of course, if you're doing certain things to evade arrest, that's a completely different discussion. But there are some people online who will look at the deaths of illegal immigrants and be like, oh yeah, they got him, they got another one. Like, no, I think that it's loathsome to celebrate stuff like this. You can support it if it's in self-defense, perhaps, but to celebrate it, I think is just ghoulish, in my opinion. Let's see, what other stories we got? Oh yeah, wait. So I actually already did have queued up an article about some of the reforms that that ICE is engaging in. Hold on, let me pull this up here. Now, I had to go to the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive for this. But we have this here from the Washington Post. The Trump administration reviewing ICE vetting process after Maine shooting. Oh, wait, hold on. This is boo. Not loading properly. Here, hold on. How do I... What the heck? This is Brave. Am I not? Oh yeah, hold on. There we go. I'm gonna completely block scripts. That should fix it. Right? No. What? Hold on. Wait a second. Okay, I was gonna pull up that article from the Washington Post, but it's paywalled. So I'm gonna read this article here from CBS News, which already has some of the details of what the reforms are gonna be. So the broader context of this conversation is that ICE is finally doing some reforms. These are the types of things that really should have been done a long time ago. Honestly, as soon as Donald Trump took office, they should have looked into ICE and be like, hey, how these people trained, there are ways that we can make this more efficient, more effective. But honestly, it seemed like Donald Trump prioritized, getting more arrest numbers and getting more people in the ICE agency rather than the effectiveness of the group or how those arrests are being conducted, which is never a good combination. I don't think that I think that most people, when they were voting for Donald Trump, I know for me, myself, we didn't want, these ICE agents to be as reckless as they can or aggressive as they can be in some situations. We wanted them to act with more restraint and not behave the way that they do in some of these interactions. But, it's a shame that, we haven't gotten what we wanted in that respect. But let's read this article here. This is from CBS News. It says, every ICE arrest team will now have an agent with a body camera, DHS says, after 2 fatal shootings draw scrutiny. This is by Nicole Skanga and Joel Walsh. Every U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrest team will have at least one law enforcement officer equipped with a body-worn camera going forward, the Department of Homeland Security said Tuesday, after 2 fatal shootings by agents who didn't have cameras. Ensuring all of our ICE law enforcement officers have body cameras nationwide is a top priority for DHS, the department said in a statement, pointing to an increase in assaults against immigration agents. They especially needed because the media and sanctuary politicians consistently spread smears about our law enforcement. Now, to be fair, there was a big movement to get ordinary Leos to have body cams. You got them, and all of a sudden, Black Lives Matter died. You know why? Because in the vast majority of cases, standard Leos tend to behave correctly when interacting with the citizenry. Now, is the case the same here? I don't know. Only time will tell. But more transparency is always a good thing, regardless of what narratives it sets or what truths it tells. So I'm happy with this, regardless of it might prove that ICE is actually pretty nice and kind. That's not my priority. My priority is that when we've got a situation like this, it's not a he said, she said thing, where ICE can just say whatever they want because there's no evidence, right? Or activists can say whatever they want because there's no evidence. If you've got video, now, to be fair, some liberals have proven me wrong on this, but typically when you've got evidence that something happened, you got it on video, you can't be like, oh no, it didn't happen like that. The person didn't try to run over the ICE agent. Typically, for most people, they'll look at the video, see what happened, understand the situation, and then once they get the truth, they move on with their lives. Versus getting spun up in he said, she said scenarios about something you got no evidence of. Ensuring all of our ICE law enforcement officers have body cameras nationwide is a top priority for DHS. Oh, hold on, no, I already read that part. The move comes after a Mexican man was fatally shot by an ICE agent in Houston last week. And 6 days later, an agent shot and killed a Colombian man in Biddeford, Maine. In both cases, the immigration personnel involved in the shootings were not wearing body cameras. Maybe it was the Biddeford, Maine thing, or I thought it was a person. They said that person had legal status. Shortly after the Houston shooting, DHS said body cameras have been deployed in more than half of ICE's field offices, and the remaining offices were said to receive them within 60 days. I mean, well, how useful are they if they're in a box? I don't care that they're in the offices. I want them on the officers. The agency blamed the incompetent rollout on a months-long lapse in DHS funding during the partial government shutdown earlier this year. A DHS spokesperson said the officers in Houston, quote, had not been issued body-worn cameras due to back-to-back Democrat shutdowns, end quote. I mean, those shutdowns have been gone for a while. I don't know if, maybe pick up a newspaper once a week or something. I don't know. Prior to the shutdown, the Trump administration had initially proposed cutting funding and staffing for ICE's body-worn camera program. Congress ultimately approved $20 million in extra funding for DHS body cameras as part of a bill to end the partial government shutdown in April. In February, after a pair of fatal shootings by immigration agents in Minneapolis, then Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem said the agency would rapidly acquire and deploy body cameras to DHS law enforcement across the country as funding became available. Democratic lawmakers have criticized DHS's slow rollout of body cameras. Democratic Representative Sylvia Garcia, who represents the Houston area, argued last week that DHS has plenty of money to deploy cameras at a more rapid clip, both in the April funding bill and in the last year's big beautiful bill, which included billions of dollars for immigration agencies. At a rapid clip is an interesting way to put it, especially in a CBS News article. Garcia said acting ICE Director David Venturella assured her in a recent phone call that all agents in the field will have access to body cameras by the end of July. Trust me, I will hold him to it, Garcia said. The shootings in Maine and Texas have drawn renewed scrutiny to ICE's practices. In both cases, DHS has said men who were shot were in the U.S. illegally, but have acknowledged that they were not the intended targets of the immigration operations. Both men were also shot during attempted vehicle stops. In the Houston shooting, DHS has accused the man of weaponizing his vehicle, which family members have disputed. ICE agents have been instructed to immediately suspend most vehicle stops during enforcement operations nationwide, except in cases involving serious criminal targets. Multiple sources told CBS News Tuesday it's a temporary pause while officers receive more training. Now, at the time of me recording this article is a couple weeks old. This article was a couple weeks old, and vehicle stops have since resumed. But this is not this is not hold on, sorry, no, trying to gather my thoughts. I'm a little bit distracted because there's a breaking news here, like a really developing story that I want to get to, and it kind of jumbled my brains a little bit. But yeah, it is true finally that we are getting some reforms in ICE now. To a certain degree, I'm like, it's too little too late. You've already killed a few people, one of them being a citizen. Like, sure, maybe the shooting at the time was justified, but the agents put themselves in danger, in my opinion. But also, we voted Trump in to be president of the 2024 term. It's now 2026, right? So this is the type of thing that should have been done in day one, where it's like, hey, you got body cams, how are we training them, make sure that everything is all, looking up to snuff before you actually start your major offensive in fighting against illegal immigration. Should have been priority number one. Now we're more than halfway through Donald Trump's final term as president of the United States, and we're finally being like, oh, maybe we should check and make sure we're doing our job properly. Like, come on. One of the things that has really disappointed me about this administration, this Donald Trump administration, is the poor organization of his administration. And things are running way better in the 2016 administration. 10 years later, things seem to be a mess when it comes to how different parts of the government are being run. This doesn't mean that I hate Donald Trump 100%. I've voted for him, but still, I had low expectations for him, and I don't even think that he's met those low expectations. For example, what has he done to try to build up stuff around the border? He hasn't done anything. He said there'd be no more new wars. He's engaged in more warfare. Now, I will say that in some of the things he engaged with, it was fair for him to engage with some of those things. But he's also entangled us in things that are really hard for us to unwind from. Like, we've been supporting Ukraine. How are we going to end the war in Ukraine? That's the one unfixable war, I think. I think that we just can't end that one. Now, with Israel, what is it? Yeah, with America and Iran, how are we going to end that one? Iran seems pretty stubborn. They want nuclear weapons. So I don't think that there's a way really that we can negotiate with them. The only way to win, it seems like, is either, through military force, take control of the Strait of Hormuz entirely, or go to war with Iran. Those are the only two options that are before us, in my opinion. So, yeah. This is exemplary of, in my opinion, the failures of the Donald Trump administration. Not to say that I'm a hater, but I can hate poor running of the government, regardless of whether that person's a Republican or Democrat, right? It's fair to admit that. So yeah, very disappointing that it's taken this long for reforms in ICE to come. But let's give credit where credit is due. At least we are seeing some reforms. All right. Here, let me pull this up, because there's literally breaking news, like literally as I speak. This was what distracted me. So there was a developing story. I didn't know if I wanted to cover this, but we do have an update. I saw this on the sidebar because on CBS News' website they do embed CBS News 24/7. But it's a massive headline. This has become international news. Berlin pride attacker served. No, well, the headline is not really what I'm trying to get at. They kind of buried the lead here. There was a terrorist attack. Now, there is an apparent Islamist in Berlin who went and attacked an LGBTQ plus pride parade, or I think yesterday, but the suspect was still at large until very, very recently. Now, we can get into this article at another time, but we do have this with the latest update on the situation. Berlin pride attacker served less than 2 years in prison for wanting to join ISIS, prosecutors say. Wait. You've got to be kidding me. This is the type of thing that's deserving of a little bit more than 2 years in prison. Wait a second. You've got to be kidding me. Hold on. Because in the United States, this would not have happened. This would not have happened at all. See, look. So this is just recent. I just looked up American man convicted for trying to join ISIS. This is what showed up. I did a quick search. This happened, not even 20 days ago. Less than a month ago. This is from justice.gov. Maryland man sentenced for attempting to provide material support to ISIS. Now, I'm believing them when they say Maryland man in this case. A Maryland man was sentenced today in connection with charges stemming from his attempt to join and fight for ISIS. U.S. District Judge Adam B. Abelson sentenced Michael Sam Tikaye Jr., 22, to 15 years in prison, followed by lifetime supervised release for attempting to provide material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Takaye revealed his plan to join and fight for ISIS to an undercover officer. 15 years in prison, followed by lifetime supervised release, basically indefinite parole. 2 years, no, less than 2 years in jail for wanting to join ISIS. That is beyond preposterous. That's insane. And the other thing too is, bro, this guy's Muslim. So it's like, that's another dimension where it's like, what, do you think that he was joking? About trying to join ISIS? Like, oh, you thought it was a joke? Like, bruh, you kidding me? You kidding me? What are we doing? No, actually, no. Don't put me in with you guys. Berlin, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Anyways, I'm getting hyped. Let's read this article. I gotta pipe down a little bit. We gotta get to the meat of the story. The 21-year-old man convicted in. Oh, by the way, credits due. It's articles from CBS. This is written by Anna Schechter, Lucia I. Suarez Sang, and Carrie Breen. So you gotta give them credits due. I try to credit the people who write the articles I read on stream. The 21-year-old man convicted in 2025 of trying to join ISIS and accused of ramming his rented vehicle into the Berlin LGBTQ Pride Parade was killed by police on Sunday, a senior police official in Germany told CBS News. The official said the suspect charged toward police with a knife and officers opened fire, shooting the suspect. Police later said that the confrontation happened at a garden colony. What the heck is a garden colony? In the suburb of Spandau. He died at the scene. Germany's interior minister identified the suspect as Abdul Balaut, a German citizen with Lebanese roots. Police described him as being part of Berlin's Islamist scene and someone who was known to authorities. Well, I guess you were known to authorities if you try to join ISIS. It's only fair. Now, I don't know what it means to be part of the Islamist scene. Does it mean like the scene of people who like, murdering children and women and stuff, like, or part of just like the Islamic community? Because those are different things. And people say, oh, a person was an Islamist, but if you're just looking at the etymology of the word, I feel like an Islamist is just someone who practices Islam, right? Like, which I guess I've heard it argued that it is imperative, as written in the text, to kill all the infidels or whatever. May or may not be true. I haven't dug into the Quran, but certainly it's true that the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful. So, Islamist scene, I don't know what that means necessarily. Balaut on Saturday night allegedly drove a van into a crowd gathered near Berlin's annual Christopher Street Day celebrations. He then continued the attack on foot and is believed to have injured people with a machete, according to Germany's interior minister. One woman was killed, and at least 29 others were injured in the attack. I mean, that's quite a lot. I don't remember the last time that there was a mass shooting in the United States where 30 people got killed. I don't remember the last time that happened. On July 3, nearly 3.5 weeks before Saturday's attack, police searched Balaut's home in Berlin-Schonenberg, prompted by an initial suspicion of a violation of Germany's Weapons Act, according to information provided to CBS News by Berlin prosecutors. However, they left after only a toy gun was found during a search, and the case was subsequently dismissed. Earlier Sunday, Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt said that everything we see here points to us dealing with an Islamic terror attack. Dobrindt said Belaut was born in Germany and that his mother was naturalized in 2002, 3 years before he was born. He said the suspect had been convicted in Berlin in the past. Berlin prosecutors said Belaut shared ISIS propaganda on Instagram in 2024 and the following year traveled to Lebanon with the intention of proceeding from there to Syria to join ISIS. However, he was arrested and sentenced to 3 months in prison. He returned to Germany in November 2025 and he was arrested in May for preparing a serious act of subversive violence, prosecutors said. He was sentenced to 1 year and 10 months in jail, but this was suspended. What? Wait a second. Wait. So, not only was he sentenced to less than 2 years for literally trying to join ISIS, but he didn't even get any of the jail time that he was sentenced to. This is not a serious country. This is not a serious country. Germany, of course, checks out. Germany, what a ridiculous nation. Absolutely absurd. I am floored. That's ridiculous. I'm gonna read that again. Hopefully they don't get stun locked again. That was crazy. He was sentenced to 1 year and 10 months in jail, but this was suspended, partially in recognition of the time he had spent in jail in Lebanon and pretrial detention. Well, I mean, that would be credited time served, right? Not in consideration. Like, this is disgusting. And partially because he admitted to the crimes and distanced himself from ISIS, prosecutors said. Well, I bet they're feeling good about themselves now. Police said they believe Belaut rented the vehicle used in the attack. He was described as being of slim build, with about 6 feet 3 inches tall, with black hair, and wearing a black hoodie with white pants. Authorities are working to determine if Belaut acted alone. A man with Iranian citizenship was arrested after the attack, but police have not confirmed any involvement in the attack, the Associated Press reported earlier Sunday. Intelligence sources told CBS News preliminary information does not suggest any nexus between the alleged attacker and the United States. I would like to say this to Christopher Street Day participants here in Berlin, but also across Germany. Don't let us not ourselves be intimidated. Dobrindt said, sometimes you got to read from a script. Dobrindt said Sunday, these acts have only one purpose. They aim to divide our community. They want to take away from us the most important thing we have, namely our openness and our freedom. Berlin's fire service said that of the injured, 3 have life-threatening injuries, 8 were seriously injured, and 5 has slight injuries. Police have not identified the victim who was killed. The attack occurred a few hundred yards from a party near Brandenburg Gate that was supposed to close out the city's Pride Festival. On Sunday afternoon, hundreds of mourners gathered at a memorial at the iconic gate. They hugged each other and laid down flowers, candles, rainbow flags, and homemade signs, including a cardboard one that said, "The only thing more powerful than hate is love." It's a dark day for the community, Julian Meiting, who attended the event and had been planning to go to an after party when he heard that something bad had happened at the parade, told the AP. Riots and jamming attacks. The attack is the latest in a series that have left the country grappling with questions about public safety. 6 people were killed and hundreds injured when a car plowed into a Christmas market in Magdeburg in December 2024. 2 months later, a car drove into trade union demonstrators in Munich, killing a woman. That's a different situation. That's a different. I don't know why you're quoting a different situation, but it's absurd. I was not prepared for the stupidity of the nation of Germany that I had to face when reading this article. You had a guy tried to join ISIS. Last year, you sentenced him to less than 2 years in prison and then said, you know what, let's not put him in jail. That didn't mean because he's been in jail for a long time. And then he goes and kills people. Well, he kills one person, got 3 people with life-threatening injuries. But bro, bro hit a total of 30 people. Like, and that's a minimum. There could be more. It said at least 29 others were injured in the attack. This is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. And don't take this to mean that I've all of a sudden become like a pro-LGBT activist. You know me, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. I believe in what scripture says about LGBT issues and things. I'm not going to be the guy you're looking for if you're looking for someone who's going to run around and supporting, LGBT rallies beyond, freedom of expression, as long as they're not exposing themselves to children, which is something that happens occasionally at these things. Occasionally, I'm being judged when I say occasionally, but we're talking about worldwide. Not every place in America is Portland, and not every place in the world is Portland. Okay, so that's a different issue. That is not even close. Like the proper response to that, even if you don't support the community or whatever, which is completely fair, the response should not be, first of all, not even attacking with violence. It shouldn't even be hatred. That's not the proper response to these people. Now, I will say that, from the greater Muslim world, that's not the ethos that a lot of people have. Christianity, I think, is a lot kinder to people, to the point where, a lot of people, especially young men, kind of look at Christianity and be like, oh, it's a weak, wimp, sissified religion, which, like, to be fair, if the goal of Christianity was to appeal to the masses, it wouldn't be Christianity. It would be something else. And some people have actually done that. They've taken Christianity and tried to make it appeal to the masses. You got progressive Christianity on one end. You got Christian nationalism on the other end. But, at the same time, Christian values do say, hey, you try to join groups that, are running around trying to kill people. You attempt to kill people, you go to jail for a long time. This is something that's in Old Testament law. And, this is something that we see in the American Penal Code. Now, that's not something that is taken very seriously in Germany, apparently. Now, hopefully this leads to some reforms in the judicial system there. Hopefully they start to take things like this a lot more seriously now. This is a tragedy, I think, because you never want to see violence just unleashed amongst the citizens, regardless of whether or not you agree with their lifestyles or not. This is just a horrible situation. And the worst part about it is that this was so easily preventable. There's so many cases where, you see some shooting or whatever. It's like, oh, well, you didn't really know this person was violent. This guy tried to join ISIS. And he didn't get any jail time. Absolutely absurd. If he was jailed for his sentence, he wouldn't have even served half of his sentence yet by today. But y'all let him free so that he could go and kill people. Like, what are we thinking? What are we thinking? This is absurd. But hey, this is what soft on crime policies get you. You happy? This is the result. Man, we're actually going through a tear. We're getting through a lot of articles. Okay, yeah, I think there are only a couple more things that I want to get to here. So we do have this article here from Fox News. Now, by the time this video uploads, I wouldn't be shocked if we actually get the announcement that Mitch McConnell has died. Now, this is not a recent article, but I did find this interesting. Kentucky governor. This is from Fox News, by the way, written by James Cerrone. And the headline here is, Kentucky governor says he received 2 calls from agencies indicating McConnell had passed. Bashir revealed the calls in an interview, though he did not specify which agencies contacted him. We can read further here. Kentucky Governor Andy Bashir said this week that he received 2 calls from agencies suggesting Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, died while he was in the hospital. In an interview with Katie Couric, Couric uploaded to YouTube on Thursday, Bashir, a Democrat, did not specify which agencies called him with the news or when the calls were made. In fact, I'd gotten 2 calls from different agencies, not state agencies, suggesting he'd passed, said Bashir, who served as governor since December 2019. Fox News Digital reached out to Bashir in McConnell's offices for comment. After nearly a month of being hospitalized, McConnell's office released a lengthy statement on July 12th saying he was being treated for a June fall. A picture of him in a hospital bed alongside his wife was also released. Prior to the announcement, there was speculation about what had happened to McConnell, given that his office did not reveal why he was in the hospital for weeks. Emergency dispatch audio from June 14, the day McConnell was hospitalized, revealed he was unconscious and may have suffered a heart attack. My doctors have confirmed that I didn't break any bones or suffer concussion, McConnell said in the statement last weekend. I didn't have a heart attack or stroke. I didn't have any tumors or hemorrhages. Now, I mean, he's a politician, so who knows if he's telling the truth here. 2 days before the longtime GOP leader shared more information about his condition, Bashir posted on social media demanding that McConnell be more transparent. I publicly and privately urged the last administration to address the public's concerns with the former president's health, Bashir wrote, seemingly a reference to former President Joe Biden, calling on Senator McConnell to do the same and provide voters an update on his own health. Bashir ended the post by urging McConnell to end the crazy speculation and just tell us what's going on. On July 8th, Bashir also wrote a letter to the 84-year-old lawmaker requesting that he fully update Kentuckians regarding the current status of your health. McConnell's doctor said he developed pneumonia early in hospitalization, but responded rapidly to antibiotic treatment. I will say this is interesting. If you guys don't remember the tragic story of Herman Cain, one of the saddest things is like to read the Herman Cain Instagram account. I think it's the Instagram account. Where literally, and this actually literally reminds me of like the Instagram account from Herman Cain. So if you've ever gone through and read this, okay, these are different posts. Like a few days in succession they were made. Herman asks us to let you know again how much he appreciates all your prayers. He's still in an Atlanta area hospital where doctors are trying to make sure his oxygen levels are right. This is a tough virus, but we serve a tougher God. Herman wants to get back in action soon, so please continue praying. And then another post here. Herman wants to, and this is, by the way, he has COVID, by the way, so a bit more context here. Herman wants to once again thank everyone for your prayers. He describes the current process as cruise control, but the progress is because the progress is slow, but his breathing is getting stronger every day. Make no mistake, he is improving. Please keep praying and know he loves you all. We wanted to give you a quick update on the boss's progress battling his COVID symptoms. Doctors like the progress he's making, although it's still slow and requires much patience. If he continues to progress at the same pace, they will probably get a little more proactive today about moving him to some new treatments. Also, he was irritated that they wouldn't let him have a Snickers bar. That's our boss. Please keep praying for him. We know it's been a few days since the last update. We know it's been a few days since we last gave you an update on the boss, but he is still in the hospital being treated with oxygen for his lungs. In the meantime, doctors say his other organs and systems remain strong. Well, I mean, bro, you need your lungs, but like, strengthening the lungs is a long and slow process. But the doctors want to be thorough about it. We'd like him to be able to come home with us. We'd like him to be able to come home now, which is frustrating, but we're glad the doctors are being thorough and making sure they're doing the job right. Thank you for praying, everyone. Please keep doing it. He really is getting better, which means it is working. And then the next post is, we're heartbroken, and the world is poor. Herman Cain has gone to be with the Lord, which is sad. And I don't bring this up to make fun of the man, but my point is this. McConnell's doctor said he developed pneumonia early in his hospitalization, but responded rapidly to antibiotic treatment. Note that that's extremely vague, right? Like, he's not at all saying that he doesn't have pneumonia anymore. He might be battling pneumonia. That might be his situation. Also, talking about how, we didn't have a heart attack or stroke, didn't have any tumors or hemorrhages. I mean, sometimes statements are put out about people in his position saying, oh, he's getting better, oh, he's stronger, and then next day you get the news that he died. Like, it is entirely possible that they're lying about his condition. The man could have been on death's door for the past 3 weeks, and we wouldn't know about it because they're trying to save face. You know, when you're putting out messaging like this, you don't want to make your man seem like he's weak, so you lie through your teeth and make it seem like everything's all good when really the man is at death's door. I don't really like that. I think there should be more transparency when it comes to the state of politicians. Don't be putting out these like misleading press statements saying like, oh, he's getting better every day. You know, he is doing quite well. Look at this picture of him smiling. You know, and especially words come out saying, you know, I think there was one or two politicians on the Hill who were like, oh, do you think the picture of Mitch McConnell, this one right here, they included it here in the article. Like, oh, do you think that this picture of Mitch McConnell is accurate? Do you think that this is how he looks? And I think one or two people said like, not unless he ages in reverse, which also definitely says something about the state of Mitch McConnell today. So I really am hoping that Mitch McConnell is all right, but frankly, it is just hard to believe the longer that we go without any updates on his condition. So that's kind of a shame. I do hope that he gets better, but you know, at a certain point you kind of start to lose hope, you know, gone so long, not even a video or voice recording of the man, you know, like it must be a really bad situation when you can't make a video or voice recording. Yeah, so there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't see anyone talking about this. I don't know, maybe I need to make some YouTube videos, but like I never hear anyone criticize the Whatever podcast for this. And I'm not going to pull up any examples because, you know, I'm not Brian Atlas. Brian Atlas is the host, right? I'm not Brian Atlas. I'm not the Whatever podcast. I don't support, you know, OF and Fansly and that type of content. But it's insane to me that the Whatever podcast does not get more hate. And some people be like, oh, you know, they put on these airheads to go on and they make women look bad, and you know, they're pretty much used as fodder for incels to be like, oh, look, you know, these women are horrible, these all women are stupid, blah blah blah, these are how all women are. Like, and yes, one can certainly make the case that that's the type of content that the Whatever podcast makes, but there's an underbelly of the Whatever podcast I think is a lot more insidious, and it's worse than a lot of other shows in the space, because I think, you know, what I just said is a lot more applicable of a show like Fresh and Fit, which I don't know if Fresh and Fit exists anymore. I know there was a rift between Fresh and Fit at some point. Like I don't even know if they're still operating. Let me see. Fresh and Fit, are they still, like, is Myron Gaines still on the podcast? Yeah, no, they're still around. Maybe the rumors I heard of their rift were a little blown out of proportion. But yeah, Fresh and Fit's still around. And Fresh and Fit probably does a little bit of what I'm about to complain about, but this isn't the majority of the show. Here's my problem with Whatever podcast, which I have now. To be fair, I don't watch incel shows, right? Like I don't watch these types of programs. But like literally the only reason I know this is because like very, very occasionally something will show up in my feed and they'll be like, oh, hey, what do you do? And like the answer is extremely predictable. The Whatever podcast is not anti-OF. It's not anti-Fansly. It's actually in support of all of these people who are engaging in this industry. Because you have to think about it. When every single guest, or like the vast majority of the guests that you have on there, they're all OF models, whatever, right? They all are making explicit content on these seedy sites. You know, it stops being a show that critiques that type of behavior, and it starts being a show where you're promoting it, especially when you're at the end of your show, you're being like, so tell us where people can find you. What's your name? What do you do for a living? Like, I don't understand how more people aren't calling this out. Why aren't more people calling this out? I don't understand it, frankly, especially because if you ask Brian Atlas, hey, what do you think of people who do OF? He'll be like, oh, I think they're despicable. I think they're horrible people. Meanwhile, this is essentially like this to being on OF and making explicit content is like analogous to late night talk shows relationship with movies and music and books. It's just ad space. It's all ad space. I am 99% sure. And this is just like seeing the pattern of how the show is up. The show goes from what, because years ago I had tried tuning into whatever podcast. I'm like, this is just stupid content. Very, very occasionally there are content creators who I watch who will be like on the left side of they'll be on Brian's side and they'll be arguing with the OF people. But every single time I've tuned in the past, first of all, the conversations are very stupid, but it's literally just like you're giving all of these models airtime. Like, it has to be a situation where, and this is just a guess, I'm not saying this for a fact, but I'd be shocked if this is not the case, that these women or their agencies or whatever, they are paying for the exposure on whatever so they can promote what they do. Like, that should be obvious. And like, I don't understand how I've never heard a critique of the program along those lines. Because when you are saying, oh, I hate this content, and even like the thumbnails of the podcast episodes, I'm like, what the heck? Like, why is that even on my YouTube home feed? Like, make it make sense. Make it make sense. This is just a point. And like, to me, it's one thing if you want to go on and be like, oh, I'm fine with people just like, you know, selling this content that they're making, you know, exposing themselves. That's one thing. But it's another thing to build your brand off of being like, I hate what these women do, and then allowing them to go on your show day in and day out. And it's always like, I've never seen a show where it's a panel full of women and none of them made that kind of content ever. Now, to be fair, again, I've only seen like maybe like 2 or 3 parts of 2 or 3 episodes. This is not the type of content that I enjoy. But this is just what the show is. That's why I don't watch it very much. It's because it's like, bro, this is just like brain dead advertising for OF. Like, I don't want that. It's actually almost kind of crazy that it's allowed on YouTube or other platforms, because I don't know if you're allowed to promote that type of stuff on YouTube. It's just weird, man. It creeps me out. I don't know. If you're watching this video and you have the same feeling about the show, let me know in the comments below. Like, are people actually criticizing this and I'm just like not noticing it? It's crazy to me. It's wild. There's no way that no one's noticed it. I can't be the first person to notice it. It's too obvious. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up. I don't usually bring up that type of content, but that's just something that just like came to mind and just kind of irked me. I'm like, why is there no video about this? Why is no one talking about this? So, I felt obligated to make a video. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. I do appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. No one tuned in live, actually, but some of you guys will watch the clips, and I do appreciate each and every one of you guys who watches the clips. There's no one to credit, so I will say, as soon as YouTube, Microsoft fixes the issue with the Realm, we will be back to playing on the Bros SMP. Hopefully, it's soon. I'm not sure that I'll be able to play next week, just because I have personal things going on. But I do know that, you know, week after next, I'll have another opportunity to hop on. If that doesn't work, literally, I'm actually going to give up on the Realm and literally do something else. Probably try to bring back like super streams or whatever. Like, I'm serious about quitting Minecraft. I spent so much time trying to get the Bros MP to work when everything was technically fine. A lot of it was just like client issues with how they built it. But now you've locked me out of what I'm paying for now. Like, that's a whole nother level. I'm done with that. So hopefully they fix it. If they don't fix it in a week, like, I'm giving up and moving on to something else. It'd be a shame for the SMP to have such an unceremonious end, because we worked for years to get to where we are, and I finally started to build a city. I'm getting close to building a city that I'm proud of, but yeah, hopefully Microsoft does the right thing, and if not, we'll move on to something else. But anyways, check out the Discord server. The link is on screen. It's dsc.ntwv.cc is the place you want to be if you want to chat with me. Yeah, don't forget to check out the new Behind That Channel where I upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, unless I forget or don't feel like it or whatever. But yeah, also, yeah, the cool thing about being in the Discord server is that you'll be notified when I'm doing a stream, what the streams are about before literally anyone else. Also, you can, at some point, I do want to have conversations with you guys on stream, so I'll be able to have you guys on as guests. But not only that, you can also submit things you want me to react to, respond to in the React Requests channel in the Discord server. So check all that out if you want to shape the content that I make. You guys actually do influence it. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Peace out, y'all.